Good morning, everyone. Well, while we're getting my presentation loaded, I'm Allison Beadle. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. And I'm very pleased to be here with y'all today. I've been working on behalf of your industry with this Tri-Lamb Nutrition Project for 6 years now, and actually, so the first year that I was working on it was when ASI was in San Antonio back in 2007. So I live right up the road in Austin, so it's great to have the industry here in Texas again for your annual conference. Before I get down into the details of my presentation, quickly, is there anyone in the room who's not familiar with the Tri-Lamb Nutrition Education Program? That's awesome. No one raised their hand. That's a great thing. So that means that y'all all know what we've been up to. So just real briefly, I'll give you a quick top line. As a reminder, the Tri-Lamb program is a nutrition education program focused on the qualities of lamb, health and nutrition qualities of lamb, and it's co-funded by producer organizations from the U.S., New Zealand, and Australia. So we focus on a generic lamb message that's just really focused on positioning lamb as a healthy protein. And that is the goal of our program, is to increase awareness and familiarity of lamb as a healthy protein. So really just driving home all of those really strong messages that we have about the nutritional attributes of lamb. I want to talk through a few key learnings that we've had over the past year. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I cough, because I do have a little bit of a cough. Because I think these are good for you to have in mind as we talk through some of the program elements that we have in place this year. You know, we've been working with the editors, food and nutrition media for several years now, as well as bloggers. And so we've got some really good key learnings under our belt that help to drive the strategy that we've put in place for our program this year. And one of the first things is that many food editors are very interested in lamb. We know they love lamb. Foodies love lamb. And food editors are very willing to feature lamb recipes, so we see that kind of coverage in consumer media quite a bit. But where we have struggled as a program is really to get those nutrition messages pulled through in the media. So, you know, it's easy for editors to, do a nice feature on lamb and show some really great lamb recipes, but we've had some difficulty really getting them to pull that nutrition message through on those stories. And we know that health and nutrition editors are specifically looking for nutrition news. They want new nutrition research, new data, and that sort of thing. And as an industry, we don't have that right now. We're not funding any nutrition research. We don't have any new data to share. So a lot of times for us, it's about getting creative in how we package our nutrition message. And that's one thing that we've been really working on for the past year, is evolving our nutrition messages so that we're not just saying, lamb is lean, lamb is an excellent source of these nutrients, a good source of these nutrients. We want to tie the nutritional attributes of lamb to health and nutrition topics that are on trend, that editors are looking to talk about. So, for example, we've worked together, the team, and had these messages approved by USDA to make some statements about the protein content of lamb and how protein is important in terms of satiety and lean muscle mass preservation, and helping to encourage weight loss and keeping you full and satisfied and that sort of thing. So, and we've also had some messages approved on some of the micronutrients of lamb that are beneficial to a healthy immune system. So we've been working to evolve our nutrition messages so that we've got more to say in the absence of having a new nutrition research study to talk about. Another thing that we found is that dietitians are really good ambassadors for lamb. This past summer, we piloted a program in 3 markets, where Washington, D.C., L.A., and Boston, where we had a dietitian in that market that served as our spokesperson. And this was a dietitian who was very well known to the media. She had her own existing platforms and channels to get messages out, and it worked really, really well for us. So that's something that we've continued this year into this 2012-2013 program that we're working on right now, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. And then finally, we've definitely learned, and this is no surprise, that influencers thrive on peer-to-peer engagement. So bloggers, other dietitians, other food influencers, fitness experts, they like to learn from each other. And so we're going to incorporate some of that into our program this year as well. So this is just a quick snapshot of our program. The current program that we're working under right now started in October of last year and will run for 12 months until really, I guess, September of this year. Our total budget is $300,000, and that budget is split 3 ways between the U.S., New Zealand, and Australia. So like I mentioned earlier, it's co-funded. And I'm going to talk through each of these elements of our program here in just a second. But, oh boy, y'all aren't going to be able to read this. But I'll tell you what this says. This is just a quick little map to kind of show you how the program elements are organized for this Tri-Land program. We have been, for the past year, really working underneath a theme of healthy entertaining with lamb. We felt like this was a theme that we could own, that none of the 3 countries that fund the product were really doing anything under this banner. So, and it's intriguing. It's a topic that's very on trend with what the media is talking about. People are thinking about health and nutrition in all aspects of their lives now. It's not just about, starting a diet when, New Year's rolls around anymore, which is what it was like for years and years. There's now more of a lifestyle approach to healthy eating, and that filters all the way down into, when you're entertaining and when you're having people over for dinner parties, you want to serve them foods that are nourishing and good for them, that are also at the same time tasty and interesting. So that's really our theme, our overarching theme of everything that we're doing. And you can really break down our activities into 3 different clusters. The first at the top are really our communications fundamentals. So the key things that we need to have in place in order for us to do our work and get our messages out there. And I'll talk through each of these things, since you can't read them anyway, here in just a second. And then our other 2 buckets are national media outreach. So we have an overlay of our program where we're doing some outreach with food and nutrition and health and fitness and lifestyle editors on a national scale. And then we have some in-market activities where we are focusing some efforts specifically on 2 really strong lamb markets, and that's Boston and DC. So let's talk through some of these program elements. I'm going to start with just kind of setting the stage with what has really become a cornerstone of our program, and that's our dietitian ambassadors that I mentioned earlier. We have 2 RDs that we're working with this year, Rebecca Scritchfield in Washington, D.C., and Janice Bissix in Boston. Dietitians in general, I have to say, really love lamb, and I am a dietitian, so these are my peers, and this is the world that I've come from. So I'll tell you that dietitians, when I've worked with them, and in the past we've had some programs that were specifically focused on educating dietitians, but they're very open-minded to red meat and very embracing of lean protein such as lamb, and so they're really good advocates for us to work with. Because they are nutrition experts, they have a very credible voice with the media. So the media likes to hear from them. They like to interview them as nutrition experts. And the dietitians that we're working with are very highly visible. They have some of the most highly trafficked nutrition blogs. And so they've got their own existing platform where they're getting their messages out. In their local markets, they're very well known by the media. They're often frequent guests on morning shows, and when, if the food editor for the paper is writing an article on nutrition, these are often the folks that they'll go to as resources. They're also, their visibility is also on a national scale. So they're not just, really popular in Boston and DC in their hometowns. They are very well known on a national scale. So that's beneficial for us when we're doing national media outreach. As I mentioned, they are a known resource, so the media knows that they can go to them, and also other nutrition professionals know that they can go to them for information and ideas. And they've got these built-in platforms that have allowed us to sync up with so we can get our messages out. And one thing that I think is really good about the 2 folks that we've paired up with is that their areas of expertise when it comes to nutrition are very complementary. Rebecca in DC is a sports nutrition expert and a weight management expert, which is great because these areas of expertise align very nicely with the nutritional attributes of lamb, and we have a lot of things that we can say that touch upon things that are important to from a sports nutrition and a weight management perspective. And Janice in Boston, her areas of expertise are really family nutrition, so getting kids to eat healthy foods, helping mom get meals on the table, healthy meals on the table in a quick way and in a way that's very family friendly. And then also culinary nutrition, which is essentially, how do we make healthy foods exceptionally flavorful? Janice is a chef by training as well as a dietitian. So we're working with Rebecca and Janice on a number of levels with our program, and I'll kind of talk y'all through those as we get down into the elements of our program this year. So the first bucket that I mentioned earlier was our communications fundamentals. And one of the things that we're doing on a regular basis now is monitoring nutrition issues. So y'all know nutrition is in the media a lot, and we felt it to be very important to keep a pulse on the trends of nutrition as it relates to red meat and lamb and our other red meat protein friends, beef and pork, so that we've really got a good feel on what the media is saying when it comes to red meat, lamb in particular, and nutrition. And I'll tell you, by and large, we're not seeing, anything largely negative about lamb specifically. What we see the media talk about from a negative perspective is the red meat category. And this is not news to you. We've been seeing this for years and years. It's a long-term trend. But the overall tone toward meat consumption in general, as you know, has become a little more negative over the years. And with the Meatless Monday trend that started back, really in, I don't know, this must have been like 2004 when it was first really getting started. It's taken on a life of its own. And people talk about Meatless Mondays, on a regular basis in the media. And you often see features for Meatless Mondays and that sort of thing. We've seen just over time this gradual trend toward more and more meatless meals. And then also another thing that we're keeping an eye on is the association between red meat and various diseases. And I'll tell you, this is, there were a couple of years ago, I think it was back in 2007, 2008, where the association between red meat consumption and cancer was getting a ton of media coverage. And we've really seen that dial back over the past several years. And in general, I would say that the red meat and disease connection, we're seeing a lot less coverage of that, but research studies are still coming out. And the media does still cover them, albeit we're not seeing as many big headlines about it. But the important thing to keep in mind about this is that really these studies that are coming out are epidemiological in nature. So just by the way the study is designed, they don't draw cause and effect conclusions. They only draw correlations. And that's a challenge that we often see in the media, is that this epidemiological study will come out showing that there is an association between red meat consumption and bladder cancer, or some disease endpoint. But the media will not go in and really explain the design of the study and some of the limitations of that study, and all the consumer sees is the headline. So that's going to be something that we'll just continually have to deal with. But we have seen, a couple of more balanced articles come out over the past 6 months, and I'm hoping that we'll see more and more in that direction. But I will say that, just overall, the tone toward meat consumption is cautious. And, there is definitely a big emphasis on including more vegetable-based protein in the diet than animal-based. And this is just something that we'll continue to watch and then respond to as needed. But the main thing is that it just keeps us on top of what's being said. And then in terms of our health and nutrition messaging, we're just working on keeping our messages up to date on a continuous basis. we have been going through a process with USDA's nutrient database, which they update every year or so. And there's not a significant amount of new lamb data in the database right now. Australia has added a couple of new cuts, but both Australia and New Zealand are going to be doing a complete overhaul of their nutrient data in USDA's database over the next 12 months. So we will be seeing some new data coming out from them, and what we'll be doing is going through the exercise that we've gone through this year and in the past, where we do a complete reanalysis of USDA's data so that we've just got the most up-to-date data to share with the media and with consumers that we're working with. And then we're also continuing to develop messages that are on trend. So as we see trends starting to bubble up in the media that they want to talk about, we're trying to find a connection to the nutrients in lamb so that we can keep lamb relevant from a nutrition perspective. We've also been in the process, we've developed a couple of new healthy recipes. Each dietitian that we're working with, Rebecca and Janice, have developed 2 new recipes for us. So we've got 4 new healthy recipes. And we've also been, we've just shot some healthy cooking videos with them. So those are in editing right now, and we'll have those ready in a few weeks. But this is just important for us to have a diverse array of communications vehicles so that we can continue to get our message out in different ways. And then, of course, our website, leanonlamb.com, we just maintain that and continue to update and refresh the content as needed. And when we have those videos, they'll be up on the website for sure. Now, in terms of our national media outreach bucket, this is where our RD ambassadors are really coming in handy. They are serving as a spokespeople for us and as a resource for the media. So this is really nice when we get a question from an editor. Like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we got a question from a writer who was doing a story for Today's Dietitian, which is the largest trade publication for registered dietitians. And she had some specific questions about the nutritional value of lamb. I was able to give her some, of the data and messages that we work with, but it was good to be able to connect her with one of our RDs so that she could have a, one-on-one conversation with a highly credible expert who knows and loves lamb and also has a lot of respect from the media. So she worked with Janice on this article, which we'll hopefully see in the April issue of that magazine. And we are also doing some dinners with editors in New York. We had our first dinner in November, and we're going to do a second one later this spring in May. And our goal with these dinners is to present lamb as both approachable and healthy. So we're not, coming in and having this super fancy dinner where, it's presenting like a rack of lamb or, some, lamb presented in a way that, consumers are not necessarily going to cook it at home. We want to really bring it down to a very approachable level. And so for the example, the dinner that we did in November, where we had 16 editors in attendance, Janice Bissix was our dietitian spokesperson at that dinner, so she came and joined us and gave a quick little presentation on the nutritional value of lamb. And instead of having a really fancy dinner, we had lamb burgers, and it was a huge hit. The media loved it, and we had lamb burgers. They were portioned perfectly. They were presented alongside. We had a lot of really nice vegetable side dishes and salads. So we were showing how lamb could be both approachable in a burger, which everyone is very familiar with, and also healthy. So presented alongside vegetables and whole grains, so the whole makeup of the meal was very, very nutritious. And we're also doing ongoing media relations, so proactively reaching out to editors and then responding to them when they come to us with questions. We're doing some seasonal pitching and then just responding to media inquiries as they come in. And one vehicle that we're using to just really get the message out in a broad way are nutrition-based news releases. And we actually have one that went over the wire yesterday. I don't know if y'all saw it, but if you Google lean lamb, it'll come up. And so what we're doing with these news releases, we're going to have 2 this year. We just, like I said, put our first one out yesterday. We'll do another one later in the spring or early summer. And the goal with these news releases is to keep the nutrition facts about lamb out there. So we want to make sure that our messages are out there in the media and that they're available online. And one of the easiest ways to do this is with a news release, because they are very sticky and they will stay around in the on the internet for a long time. And so we're keeping our content more evergreen focused. So it's the content of these news releases is not highly tied to a season. We're just keeping it more focused on lamb as a healthy protein and talking about its, you know, the lean factor and the nutrients that lamb has in it, and including quotes from our dietitians that we're working with. And this gives us a really specific opportunity to go out to all of the editors that are on our media list and share some information and get the conversation going and continuing to nurture that relationship. Oops, I went back. So let's talk a little bit about what we are doing in our two markets, Boston and Washington, D.C. So as I mentioned, this is again where we're seeing our RD ambassadors come in. They are local experts with local insights. So they not only are a face that the local community knows very well, but they know their local community. So they know what, excuse me, what the media and what consumers in their markets in Boston and DC are going to want to hear about, and what angles are going to be of interest to them. Just a second. Okay. And so we're able to work with them on local media opportunities. So like I mentioned earlier, often that is with their local broadcast station, but also we're pitching them right now to food editors at local publications and the paper in their market. And they're also going to serve as in-market hosts for an event that I'm going to tell you about in just a second. The next thing that we're doing in market this year is adding in a layer of retail outreach. And this is something that we have talked about for years, wanting to do, but we've never taken the time to really figure out how to go about doing it. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're in a mode of doing a little research with retailers in Boston and DC to see how we might be able to collaborate with them on some in-store educational activities that focus on educating the retailer's customers on the nutritional attributes of lamb. And so what we're doing is primarily working with the dietitian for that retailer. And as you all may know, many retailers, grocery stores across the country have hired dietitians over the past 5 to 7 years. There's now more than 400 dietitians that work for retailers. And so it's kind of a trendy thing to do if you're a grocery company. And as I mentioned earlier, dietitians are friends of lamb. And so they provide a really good entry point for us in having a conversation with the retailer about doing some sort of nutrition-focused educational program. And so right now we're just, I would say, in research mode, where we're talking with a dietitian and we're about to go into a mode of conversation where we're getting on the phone with both the dietitian and the meat buyer and looking for ways to create a collaboration between those two individuals within the retailer so that we can do some sort of educational activity in store. And that may take the form of a healthy cooking class that's focused on lamb, on some secondary displays within the meat department, with some POS materials, some lamb recipe recommendations from the dietitian for the retailers. So each retailer, as y'all know, they've got their own thing going on. So we'll be customizing these programs for each retailer. And I think we'll learn a lot from it this year, and hopefully it will be something that we'll be able to continue. Time constraints. Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
A trap door down there that's going to drop you off.
Oh goodness. Well, you know what? I'm going to move then. Well, that's great because
Sorry,
that's fine. No, I appreciate that. I need someone to keep me under control up here. So lastly, I'll tell you real quick about these other two things that we'll be doing in market. One is the influencer events, and I mentioned that influencers thrive on peer-to-peer engagement. We're going to be doing a Healthy Entertaining with Lamb spring event in the homes of the dietitians that we're working with. They both have really fabulous homes and big studio kitchens where they do a lot of media work in their house. And we're going to bring 30 to 50 dietitians, food influencers, food media, fitness experts, food bloggers in for a lamb immersion experience. And so we're really excited about that. And then in addition, we're continuing to maintain the relationships with the food bloggers that we've developed over the past year. As y'all will recall, we had the Supper Club program that we had underway last year, and then this Healthy Entertaining with Lamb theme is an outgrowth of that. And so we're just continuing to keep those relationships going. We're going to be doing a loin chop mailing with these bloggers, and they'll also be a part of our influencer event. And these influencer events are taking place in April. And that's it. I'm done. So I really didn't have that much more to say.
Oh, well, we thank you.
Thank you.